Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's SEJ webinar, brought to you by our partners at Conductor. With us today, we have Nick Gallagher, Senior SEO Strategy Director over at Conductor. Hey, Nick, how's it going?
Good, Lauren. Great to be here with you.
Awesome. Great to have you. Always love having you and the rest of the team on for our events. So today, in this live webinar, we're going to be discussing how to track AI visibility and prompts the right way, Nick. And just to let everyone know, this is a live webinar. So while Nick is presenting, we highly encourage all of you to, if you have any questions, ask them in the Q&A box on your webinar panel. Nick's going to be presenting for about 40 minutes or so, and then we're going to switch over to a live Q&A where I'll be asking some of the best questions or most relevant questions that come in. The question we get the most is, are the slides and video going to be made available after the webinar? The answer is yes. So the slides, the video, and a recap will be sent out to all registrants and attendees. But stay tuned for the live Q&A. That's a really cool part outside of everything. Also, you'll see a chat box here. Use the chat to kind of talk back and forth. I see a lot of you are already in there and active, letting us know where you're coming in from. We see people from Alabama, Kansas, Iowa, Portugal, all different kinds of places. So that's always fun to do. And also, as Nick is presenting, you'll see some little emojis at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to, give them the positive reinforcement with smiley faces, hearts, raise the roof, whatever it may be.
We don't have the thumbs down emoji, do we?
No, we took that out. We took that out. And also, we will be launching a poll during the webinar. I highly encourage all attendees to answer the poll questions. That gives Nick a really great way to understand who's attending, what your challenges may be, et cetera, et cetera. So on that note, I'm going to hand things over to you, Nick, and let you take control. And I'll be back for the Q&A.
Awesome. And actually wanted to start with a poll. So we're jumping in right off the bat. Would love to know where everybody is in their AI tracking journey. You should have it popping up in front of you. I'd love to see kind of how long we've been tracking some of these metrics before we dive in. As I give everybody a minute to go ahead and answer that poll, I'll just give a little bit about myself. I'm loving seeing where everybody's coming from. I saw one Colorado in there. I'm also in Colorado, just a little bit north of Denver here. Happy to be with you today. Been in search for a bit over 10 years now, which is a little wild to say, but obviously the last 2 or so have been even crazier than normal. Excited to share some of those learnings that I've found over the past couple of years with you today. And as I'm just checking in, let's see, do we feel like we have enough time for the poll here?
Yeah, we have about 162 responses. I think some more are coming in, but I'll go ahead and I'll share the results.
Yeah, let's pop those up. Interesting.
Here we go. What do you think about this?
So we've got kind of people in all different various journeys of their stages. I'll say I clicked 12 months in there, so I'm part of that 14%, but I'm also on the inside of things. So I have been tracking as long as that software has been available. But interesting to see. So we have a lot of people who haven't been tracking yet. I think this will be a great session for you today. And even if you've been tracking for a couple of months in those middle grounds, I think you'll find as we go through today's talk that there is a lot more to do. AI tracking is a little bit more of a living thing to me than a traditional keyword list. So very much still time to fold in some of these best practices into your, let's say, 2026 reporting, right? Without changing too much from the first couple of months of the year for you to get the most out of the rest of this year's data.
Very cool.
With that,
so Nick, I'm going to go ahead and jump back down, and I'll be back for the Q&A later.
Perfect. All right. I'll try not to mess it up too much while you're gone. All right, everybody, let's get into it. So before we get into how to track, I think we need to talk about what we're tracking and the differences between AI search tracking and traditional keyword search tracking. I know we have people who are at different stages of their AI tracking journey here. So some of this might be new to you, but I think it's extremely foundational to what we're doing today. So it's important to go through these. And really quickly, just to talk about the change in search, right? In search behavior and the whole search landscape. Way more words are being used in people's searches on LLMs, right? About a 23-word average is about what's out there. I would say traditional keywords is anywhere from 1 to 5 on average, depending on where you look. I think we're all very familiar with the rise in zero-click searches, right? LLMs are really good at summarizing that information and giving it to the user without them having to click through to a site if they are just looking for information. So we've all seen the effects of that. The growth has been great over the last 12 months or so. It's about 100% growth in usage and spend. Obviously, there's some discrepancies or some different data depending on where you look, but I think it's undeniable the growth rate is very high for LLMs and AI search right now. And those systems are finding different content on sites, right? They'll go deeper on a site. They'll go deeper into a page. They'll look a little bit harder for something specific to the specific prompt that was typed in, rather than, hey, this is generally a good site for this general topic that was typed in. We'll see how it goes, right? It's a lot more specific, a lot more precise in that way. And just as I was saying, the systems just work completely differently, right? Traditional search at various levels with a lot of sophistication, of course, is phrase matching, right? You're going to type in a short phrase and we want to optimize our page, especially back in the old days, right? Of like, hey, let's make sure we have our phrases, our keywords in the right places so that we rank well for anybody that types those in, right? AI search, much, much more complex, much more focused on that topical authority than your traditional search and its phrase matching, right? In this example here, probably a short prompt of kitten, right? But it's closest to cat, which is close to dog, which is close to wolf, but wolf is furthest from kitten because those two ideas are furthest away from each other. And then on a whole nother 3D axis, we have bananas and apples and fruits that have nothing to do with what we're talking about. That's a little bit of a visual representation of how an LLM, an AI search engine, is going to think about information. And it's obviously from these two visuals, you can see a very different way than how traditional Google would consider your search and determine what results to return. So let's get into what we are tracking now. I like to try to make some comparisons to the old world of traditional keyword tracking, but I would say each of these are kind of similar, but different, right? We can make some comparisons, but there is almost no one-to-one between traditional search and AI search as far as these metrics and what we're going to care about goes. So the first pair there, we have keywords in the traditional sense, all very familiar with those, right? Now we have topics and prompts. And I'm going to get more into these individually in just a minute. Our primary metric off of those keywords or prompts is rankings for keywords, right? Where are we? 1 to 100. Mentions and citations. Again, much more in both of these coming up, but those are my two primary KPIs in AI search right now. And they're what I'm paying the most attention to. Getting into a little bit of the audience that we're measuring, right? The traditional SEO, I'll give you, maybe we have some location filters, right? Maybe we've done a little personalization for where we're doing business or where people are searching. But I think that's one of the only real reliable kind of ways that we would cut up traditional data, right? Otherwise, we're kind of trying to rank number one for everybody, right? Basically everybody that we could possibly reach. We want to just be as high as we possibly can for that. Not a bad idea on its face, right? But in AI search, we have the ability to be a lot more targeted, get a lot more specific, and really focus on who we are trying to reach. That's going to be a real core value of our tracking setup. It's not going to be just let's pick a few keywords and try to rank as best we can for everybody. It's going to be who are we trying to reach? What are they searching for? And let that start to inform a lot more of our tracking than what we maybe think that everybody is kind of looking for and getting to that lowest common denominator, maybe in traditional search. We can be hyper focused on who we want to reach, track the things that they're searching for, and create the content that they're searching for. So it's a new world. There are a lot of new metrics, but there are some new opportunities out there. And I think the big theme of those opportunities is specificity and targeting in the AI search world. And then we have those last two, right? Pretty traditional metrics for us, and they're not going away, but things are shifting, right? Traffic, we'll talk more about it. We already talked a little bit about zero-click searches. We will get more into the effects there and what to expect traffic-wise from both channels. And then conversions, which is at the bottom of this table, but is always top of mind for me. Always the most important thing for us. I think we'll, again, get into the shifts in traffic patterns, and I have seen a lot of concern, maybe even panic over the last 12, 18 months over the changes in traffic there. But unless you're a publisher, you're relying on ads, on-site ads revenue from impressions, from clicks on your site. Traffic was never actually the goal. Traffic was a means to an end of conversions, whether that's a purchase for you if you're an e-commerce website, if that's a form fill or some type of lead gen on the B2B side, whatever that thing is, that's what we really wanted our websites to do, not just get the most traffic. Otherwise, we'd all just be writing about the Super Bowl and Beyonce and whoever's got the most search volume behind their name at the time, right? But that's not what we're doing because that's not actually our goal and never has been. So let's get into each of this kind of old world, new world comparisons individually here. So keywords and prompts. Keywords, we know these, right? We've talked about it. They're pretty short. Your opportunity is your monthly search volume, and the measurement is pretty broad. I'll give you a location as a filter. Definitely, if you do business globally in different countries, we probably have some different content there. Otherwise, kind of just broad, non-specific reporting, right? Prompts, we've also talked about. They're longer. They are more conversational, 23 plus words in a search. I think I'm looking for some harder data on kind of how many searches are done at a time. I haven't found anything reliable there, but I would bet you it is maybe even more than Google because of that conversational nature, especially for a more adept user of the LLM. I think you get the most out of it by kind of refining your question and asking it a few follow-ups maybe. So there's more going on. There's a lot more context in the search than, best X product near me, or, software for X business, right? We can get a lot more specific than that with these prompts. And the prompts themselves are so specific that we have to measure them in a different way than we would keywords. So this is really the first place that I think is a big shift from traditional keyword tracking to our AI tracking here. And that is synthetic prompt generation. Quite a mouthful. This is what we use at Conductor to get the best data, and in my opinion is the only way to get good representative data on AI search right now. So this is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. We are not in Conductor showing the prompts that an individual has typed in, a literal prompt that was scraped from an LLM, like somebody typed this in and then showing you that and the answer. And the reason we're not doing that is because these systems aren't designed to work in that way, and measuring that way will give you the incorrect idea of performance. In an AI search engine, in an LLM, you can type in the same exact prompt and get a completely different answer with different cited sources if you do that same prompt back to back to back. You will get different answers, and the system is designed to give you different answers. If you ask again, it's going to assume, all right, maybe we didn't quite hit the mark on that first answer. Let me give you something a little bit different, but obviously still answering the question. So if you're going to get different results every time you type the same thing in, having a one-to-one tracking like in the old keyword world and kind of just scraping the rankings, right? Like where do we rank for this user? Hey, this is real user data. Well, in AI search, real user data is only relevant to that one user. Every prompt will have a search volume of 1. There will be no use in that one-to-one tracking. So you have to have a more representative level of tracking. This is just one example here. That prompt at the top is actually a prompt we're tracking in Conductor for Conductor.com. And I just asked Gemini to spit out 10 different ways to say it, and it did, right? Like, I don't want to know, nobody's exactly typing that exact phrasing in, right? But there are representative signals in this prompt, right? So the first part, how can businesses? So I know I'm talking about a business. I'm searching for a business. I'm looking for a B2B product. Maybe it's a software, whatever. We've now oriented around business. Then we've got integrate AI into content strategy. You can say that a lot of ways, right? Add AI into content, create content using AI, use AI to improve my content. Just spat out 4 different ways to say that, right? So I want all of those represented as well. And then as we go through the rest of the prompt, right? Gain a competitive advantage, improve search visibility. Okay, some of those kind of core search principles, right? Let's see what our competitors are doing. Let's make sure we're in that conversation. Improve visibility, generally improve performance, improve search performance, improve AI search visibility. Many ways to say that as well, right? And then without compromising brand voice. So using AI without giving up kind of that natural tone. There's another way to say that. You have to have this representative tracking. You don't want to know what one person typed into ChatGPT and the answer that they got. You want to know how all of the people who are searching for your topic or your subtopic and the different answers that they got. You want a sample of that. You want a sample of the sources that are being cited, and you want a few different prompts that are representing a bunch of different prompts under them to get a real understanding of how you're performing rather than how you were shown to one person and will never be shown again. So synthetic prompt generation, really, really important for tracking AI visibility in a sustainable, scalable way right now. And that one-to-one keyword world just does not fit into AI search. So let's move on to topics. Topics are kind of similar to keyword groups, and I am going to describe them kind of how we use them at Conductor. That is where I have my most experience in AI tracking. And obviously I'm a little biased, but I think we do it pretty well. So we will have all of those prompts that we've generated under a topic for us, and we'll track many topics, right? But it's kind of like the way a keyword group used to function, also similar to maybe like a primary target keyword or a head term in a space. You can kind of think of them that way. They're generally similar in that way, but we'll use them very differently. I will say, topics are a great level for reporting right now, especially executive reporting. I don't really want to get into the weeds on prompts, and we know that they're representing all of these different people. I want to roll all that up. Maybe I'm tracking 50 to 100 prompts under a topic. I'm going to report on how I'm doing for that topic, right? And that's a little bit more of that executive level reporting anyway. The same way you wouldn't report, hopefully, I'm not a big fan of reporting on individual keywords in an executive report. I might report on number of keywords ranking on page 1 and that change to an executive, might report on the market share of that group of keywords, but certainly not those individual keyword metrics, right? So prompts, I think, are more for probably the people who are here, right? The people who are in search day to day, the people who are going to be digging into the minutia of this tracking, looking for those optimization opportunities. That's all great stuff to be found on prompts. That topic level is a little bit of a roll up, right? Almost just kind of encompassing a bunch of prompts, also making it a much easier way to report out for those of us that are not in search every day. So another big one here, rankings versus mentions and citations. We've gotten at the core of this, right? We all know what a ranking is, and it's measuring that phrase matching optimization that we have all gotten pretty good at over the years, right? The LLMs, the AI search engines, they don't measure phrase matching at all, right? They want to measure your topical authority, which I think kind of boils down to two things. One, is your content good? Is it informative? Is it structured well? Is it easy to understand? And then two, are you a good source of information on that topic, right? Why should I be coming to you for this information? So, my Super Bowl example, right? We at Conductor could put up an article about the Super Bowl, but we're probably not going to be cited in many AI answers or even mentioned in many AI answers because we're not authorities on American football and the Super Bowl. We're authorities on SEO, AEO, content optimization. If we publish something on those topics, I would expect us to be mentioned and cited in AI answers because we are an authoritative topic and we've built our site in a way to show that authority, and also obviously biased, but I think we create some pretty great content as well. So it's really about who you are as an informational source and the type of content you're creating rather than, do I have the right phrase in my title tag and my H1 and a few of my H2s and all of those good optimization signals. Now, generally optimizing a page nowadays, you want to do both, right? I'm certainly not leaving traditional search behind, and AI and traditional SEO optimizations generally go pretty hand in hand. There are just a few differences, maybe some different weighting between things we would do, but still not leaving it behind. Important to know, but for AI search, which we're going to focus on today, we need to focus on brand mentions and citations. And to have those, we need the authority. Speaking of those two metrics specifically, a brand mention, to be clear, is in the AI generated answer if your brand, your company was mentioned in the answer, was talked about, as in you're a good solution for X problem. A citation is when you actually have a link in and you are a cited source of that answer. I've actually found in a lot of the data, especially through the early part of 2026 here, a lot of companies that I work with have a great market share of brand mentions, and a little bit less of market share of citations, actually significantly less of citations, as it seems now that the LLMs and AI search engines are favoring third parties, right? We're all, the clients I work for are all being talked about and we're in the conversation in this space. But as of right now, a lot of the engines are actually favoring more of a third party source, like an industry publication, something like maybe a search engine journal, actually. which goes hand in hand with a lot of the updates Google's been making, though I don't expect that to be the state of play forever. So, which is another reason it's super important to get this tracking set up this year. I think AI search has maybe not reached the level of general adoption to impact your business goals in a huge way this year, but I think we're certainly heading in that direction, and having this first party data, as much first party data as you could possibly have, will help you react to those changes when they do inevitably come in the future. So before we leave this slide, I do just want to reiterate, brand mentions and citations are my two big KPIs in AI search right now. And you can kind of think of a brand mention like an impression. It's kind of similar to an impression in the old keyword world, though I would argue that it's more important, mostly because there is less real estate in AI search. So, right, we have our 1 to 100 traditional rankings. If you're in the teens, if you're in the 20s, you may still get an impression, maybe even in the 30s, depending on the topic, right? In AI search, there are somewhere between 3 and 10 citations, depending on your engine and the topic you're looking at and kind of what you've asked for, but there's not 100 spots. Having your brand in that conversation, whether you're cited and linked to or not, I think is extremely important for brand building and brand authority in AI search. So functionally, mentions are similar to the old impressions, though I would argue that they are significantly more important. And then citations, obviously, that's kind of that next step. Love having your site linked and hopefully getting some traffic, though, as we'll talk about, traffic maybe not our actual goal from AI search. So here's a little sample of some of the metrics we have in Conductor. You can see in that top left, we have mentions and citations over time. We have great market share. That's that pie chart there. I know everything's a little hard to see, but these are the types of reports that I'm building now. And we're starting to look at on a weekly and monthly basis. Every monthly report I do now has an AI search section. And I highly, highly encourage, again, we need that brand mention and citation data. That first party data that you'll collect is the best data out there right now. So definitely need that. And I will throw one more thing in that I've been a huge advocate for over the last year, and that's to educate your internal stakeholders now. Don't let the first AI search report that they see be the first time that they're hearing about brand mentions and citations. It's really important to keep up that internal education so that we're all on the same page. Everybody knows the metrics that we're talking about before we start adding them into performance reporting. We want to make sure that we know that a brand mention is kind of like an impression, but more important in the AI search world, right? That's a point I would love for my audiences to all know before we dig into a report on brand mentions. So definitely want this tracking, want this data to help you make decisions. At the same time, start educating internally before you're reporting on it, before you have any goals related to a mention or a citation or a lift in AI visibility. Everybody needs to know what these are before we start actually using them. And the earlier you get ahead of that, the easier it'll make your life. So we've talked a lot about this, but a big change in the two trackings is an undefined audience versus specifically targeted in AI search, right? And I will talk a lot more about personas actually, because I do think that there will be the starting level of our tracking, but that persona driven tracking and honestly optimizations, persona driven search strategy is something that I think is the most successful in AI search right now. We also do get more data, and we collect all of this at Conductor around the intent of the prompt. And we've actually broken intent out to a few more levels than we would have in the past, right? This is kind of a traditional look at, if you had some personas, maybe you kind of got together at your kickoff event for the year, put together a few personas. We know we kind of have our 5 marketing funnel stages, maybe an extra one for the post-purchase support. And that's about as good as you can do. It's actually pretty good as far as the traditional search world goes. But now we can get a lot deeper. I will start at the top there at Conductor. We have broken those intent stages into more than your traditional funnel, specifically more specificity in the lower funnel and where people actually are, rather than just that like pricing decision-making stage. And I think that's really important for AI search because one of the biggest use cases so far has been comparisons, right? People are going on to just say like, hey, I've got these two products, which one's better? Or hey, just give me one of those product tables that tells me like who has what and who doesn't have those features, right? This is the type of specificity we can get into. And just again, looking at the personas on that left side there, looking at the traditional world, right? We have three, they're pretty good. They're probably, they're representing different types of people who would want different things from an office setup, right? But now we're going to break it down much farther, right? Freelancer, that's going to be a home office, right? Office manager, they might need 100 chairs and 100 desks. A gamer, I know they've got special chairs. So we can really start to get a lot more targeted here. And this is the type of setup that we want to have for on the persona side. We want to have that set up before we start our tracking, because we're going to build our tracking from who we want to reach. Traffic. So hinted at it earlier. Obviously, we've had the big rise in zero-click searches. I don't think that traffic is coming back. It impacted you somewhere probably between 10 and 60% of your traffic, depending on how informational your site is and how informational your traffic was in the past. And that's okay for me. As I said, unless you're a publisher, unless you're trying to get eyeballs to your site for ad impressions, and that's a revenue stream for you, then traffic was never the goal. It is a means to a conversion, whatever that means for you. And I'll say in AI search, I think you'll start to see a lot more articles. And I've already seen, I was looking at one, I think earlier this week about how AI is just probably not a traffic driving channel. It's a place right now that people go and do a lot of comparisons. And like in the last kind of holiday shopping season we had at the end of last year, it was found that a lot of people were doing all their comparisons and having AI go through and find all those details, or say like, hey, I want this specific thing, only show me the products that have that feature, and then going back to traditional search to check out. That's just how it kind of went last year. That behavior will absolutely change, but I don't see that traffic coming back. And I don't see traffic being a huge part of my reporting for AI search. Right now, as I said, it's kind of forced. I want to focus on my mentions and citations. Those are things that we can more reliably impact as far as optimizations go. And then I also want to focus on, not to spoil anything, we'll cover it more on the next slide, but conversions as well, because conversions, and actually let's just go there now, conversions were not as impacted by zero-click searches, right? Because zero-click searches were never going to end in a conversion. They were just somebody looking for information. So you may have seen a dip, right? Generally, the amount of traffic that went down, we probably saw less conversions. You probably got less people who were looking for information and then kind of, saw something at the checkout aisle and threw it in there at the end to make an analog comparison there. But overall, not the drops that we saw in traffic, because as of right now, I know this will change, but as of right now, you mostly need to go to the website to convert, whatever that means, form fill, checkout. And then I am not naive. I am aware that agentic shopping is coming and will change the conversation around conversions. I'm not going to get too much into that right now. In fact, this is all I'm going to talk about it, because we need to see what will be available and who's going to be in those early trials and what does it actually look like? Does the technology work? Do people trust it enough to use it and actually check out without them being involved in the checkout process? Or is there a human element in that checkout process? A lot to still be determined on agentic shopping. I think first step, the technology needs to get all the way there for it to work, and then they'll have to work on adoption. So definitely will be some shifts in conversions and how we want to report on those, but still TBD on a lot of what that will look like right now. All right, a lot of preamble. So let's get into what exactly to track. As you might have guessed, we want to start with personas, as I've been saying. So there is too much in AI search, right? Everything's a search volume of one. You can search for anything in a million different ways. We want to be more targeted in what we're tracking. We don't want to track everybody. We want to track the people who are looking for what we have. And we want to attract the people who we want to reach, maybe even if they're not looking for exactly what we have, but we know they would be a good target audience for us. So the first thing to do before starting any tracking is to build your personas. It really, really is the foundation. And at Conductor, it is the foundation of our tracking. What we will do, our system that's powered with our AI will take everything we know about you, which is your traditional keyword tracking. We have our technical monitoring tools, so we'll probably have your title and description tags. everything that we have been tracking in the system, basically in the Conductor ecosystem, to inform what we track for you in AI search. And the biggest piece of that to me is the personas, which you can upload as many as you have or as few as you have, but I absolutely would not set up AI search tracking without having a few personas set up at least. So our system will take everything like, hey, I want to reach the college student or a family of four, or the procurement team for a financial company because I sell financial software, right? Like I want to think about exactly who are the people I want to reach and make sure I have a good idea of that. And then the great part is once you do have that, and we'll get into some tips for building those good personas, once we do have them, if you're a Conductor customer, I guess I'll say, you put those in the system and then let the AI systems take them into account for you. Again, a much more of a living thing than traditional keyword tracking on the AI search side. And a lot of that is honestly powered by AI systems and the things that we've built at Conductor, making it a lot easier to do these refreshes and making sure that we are accounting for everything without needing a human or 10 humans to spend hours and hours combing through an Excel sheet and lining up personas and keywords and all this good stuff to then upload. And then if anything changes, we're going to have to go manually change everything again, right? That's not really the case anymore. So I highly recommend letting the systems work for you in this way. But getting back to personas, honestly, they really don't need to be too complicated. I think they are important, but not difficult. So as far as starting, like give your name persona a name and role. Those are usually like name and role are kind of the names of my personas, right? The executive level person, the technical researcher here, C-suite executive, family of four, college student, whatever it may be, however you break down your audience, you can just title them a pretty descriptive title, I would say. And then just think about what are their goals and who are they, right? If I'm selling a B2B software, I know I'm probably going to be reaching somebody who's searching at work. They kind of probably know the drill, right? Probably not their first time doing an RFP or going out and looking to get a software for the company. So what are their goals? Probably efficiency. Hey, I just need to know these 4 things that are really important to me. Or like, hey, I know my procurement team is going to take a while. So here's what I need right now. The person is, a white collar worker. If you sell in a particular area, you may have, some insights on that side of things. Whatever you know about the people you want to reach, that should be included in your persona. And to be totally honest, I think your internal teams are the best source of information for this. Hopefully you have a pretty good idea of who you want to reach, but I would also reach out to other teams internally, your internal marketing team, sales teams, especially anybody who is customer facing, and just ask, right? Like, who are these people? There may be some commonalities that your salesperson sees because they're hopping on and off calls with these people all the time that may not show up in the data, but that might be helpful for you to include in your persona and then maybe filter on through into some content optimizations for you. So very much, it's super duper important, even more now than ever, to focus on who you want to reach, and that should be the foundation for what you are tracking. So we saw this slide already. We have now the ability to turn this into reporting in Conductor. This is a new, it's in an alpha test right now, but a view of reporting by persona. I know it's a little hard to see, but we've got our personas on the left side. We've got our intent stages across the top there, just like we did in the previous slide. And I'll tell you, we made this like at least a year ago, maybe even more, as kind of a future state. And I'm super excited to now see it in the platform. This is a screenshot from a Conductor account. And this is the type of reporting that I'm going to be looking at a lot this year. Are we reaching the right people, and are we reaching them at the right stages? And maybe some personas, it doesn't always make sense to be at every stage, right? The system at Conductor is not going to force you to have prompts for every persona in every topic, only the ones that make sense. And a lot of businesses will have product lines that are made for completely different personas, and that's okay. I don't need to measure the topics for one product line that I'm not trying to sell to this persona against all my personas. That doesn't make any sense. With this level of reporting, we can now get into who are we talking to, when are we reaching them, how much market share do we have, who else is in that conversation. And then as we get into this data, you can click into all these squares and like get the data behind it. It's like very, very cool. see what those answers are, see what the content, see what, like, maybe a prompt is mentioning a few specific things that we just don't have represented on our page, but maybe we do have those things. Great, let's get that content onto our page and get into that conversation. That's the kind of way we'll want to optimize moving forward. So it's the way we have to report. Therefore, kind of trickling all the way down, it's the way we should track. So choosing topics and prompts. Again, this one, I think, important, but not overly complicated. Kind of similar to a keyword world, right? We want to track at least one topic for every product and service that we offer, right? What's our website for? What does a conversion mean? What are we trying to sell? What is the end goal of our website beyond getting people there? We need to track topics for all of those things. At the same time, the more specific your topic is, the better. And I think there's it's kind of like traditional SEO. There's a little art, little science to it. We want to make sure that we are tracking everything for our products, but we probably can go one level deeper if we're starting at a level like software, right? Software, too broad. We wouldn't want it. We sell software at Conductor. That's not a topic I'm interested in tracking. Way too broad. AI search tracking software, organic marketing software. Now we're talking. That's a good topic that's going to focus all of the prompts kind of into my space, where software, probably too broad, right? Like we're going to get non-organic marketing software, which there are millions of, right? You'd probably need millions of prompts under a topic that broad to actually get coverage. So do be mindful of the specificity, but again, little art, little science. There's a little bit of a balance to it. It may take, we do one setup, we let it run for a month, and maybe we adjust how we're tracking certain things. Maybe we break a topic into 2 topics to get a little bit more specific. If we find that our data is a little bit too broad, we'll want to have a balance there. And you can, in Conductor, customize the amount of prompts you track under each topic. So if we have a topic that's, maybe a bit more specific than what we've been talking about, but it's really important to our business, great. Maybe we track that with somewhere between 20 and 50 prompts, and a more broad topic like organic marketing software is maybe a level or 2 above that. Maybe we track 100 prompts under that topic to get a more representative sample of a bit of a wider topic. Now, if there's overlap, maybe you don't need that as much, and that's the kind of thing you can kind of test and iterate on in your own tracking. But don't be afraid to play around with, hey, maybe this topic should actually be 2 topics. And maybe I'll do fewer prompts under each one because I've made it more specific with my topic. So each prompt is more specific, and I don't need quite as many to get that coverage of my actual performance as I would have needed with a broader topic. So again, a little bit of a balance there, a little trial and error, but also don't be afraid to switch it up. I think this year is a good time to figure out what works and what doesn't. And you don't need to be, I personally wouldn't be married to one tracking configuration just to say we had the same tracking configuration all year for comparison purposes. I think there will be more updates in these as we go throughout this year of obviously a lot of change, but I think just in general, regularly there will be more updating. We'll do more refreshes of prompts. I think topics will kind of be a little more static, but we'll refresh the prompts. And again, using these tracking systems, using AI systems built for this to refresh our prompts and give us the most up-to-date things that people are searching for on their LLMs, all enables us to do that refreshing a lot easier, gets us better data. I think it's something that I will be doing a lot this year. Topics will kind of be static, but the prompts underneath, we'll refresh them once or twice in the year, especially if we have any new products, new personas we want to reach, anything like that we want to make sure is accounted for in our tracking. Couple more tips here, and then I'm going to quickly run through the engines that are currently available, or at least the big ones, and then we'll get into Q&A, I promise. So definitely recommend tracking at least one branded topic. Like this can just be your business's name. I would track it across all the engines that you track. It's good to know how you're being talked about. We also haven't talked about it too much today, but we have sentiment data in Conductor, and that sentiment is basically the sentiment of the AI generated answer about you, right? How are we being talked about? Are we in conversations around the top of the line products? Are we in the value conversation? Or hopefully it's more positive than negative, though we do report on both. So we can kind of see how we're being talked about there. Super important for your brand, right? So if whatever engines you're tracking, just throw a topic that is your brand name, essentially. I think the prompts that systems recommend that you track for your brand can also be interesting research for you. So absolutely throw one in there. Also, like ownership of brand, not quite as a given as traditional search, right? You type in your brand, you're probably going to be number one. I know there's a lot of exceptions to every rule, especially in search, but you generally expect to be up there. In branded, maybe not. I won't even speak to it. Let the data speak for itself. And then this last point, I've kind of been making it, but I am thinking a lot about my topics. I'm not thinking too much about my prompts. I'm not editing them too much. I'm not getting too precious about them because I think we will refresh them a lot more than we would a traditional keyword. Also, these systems are really good at recommending good prompts under these topics. So I do understand, though, a little curation I think is fine. If you have some like negative keywords or just phrases you can't use legally, you just don't want it included in your tracking, absolutely filter those out. Same thing on the flip side. If there's, hey, we definitely want this represented in at least one prompt, so we have some data on it, great. But I wouldn't recommend going line by line in like an Excel sheet to edit every prompt. Some broad editing in that way will get you really good data, and then we're gonna refresh it moving forward. So to not do that process again, the same way we don't all want to do it for a keyword list anymore, let these systems help you. They're getting pretty good. Review it, just like anything AI generated, right? If it generates your content, you should absolutely proofread it, but let it do the heavy lifting for you. All right, where to track? I'm going to do a little bit of a speed round here. I do want to leave time for the Q&A. So we've got kind of our big, I don't know how you want to break up the Google ones. I'll tell you how I break them up here. So AIO and AI mode, highly recommend tracking for pretty much every business. And the biggest reason is because I think you're getting the biggest sample size here. I think of the general public, of people who know nothing about search marketing, who don't know what AEO means or even SEO means, they are seeing an AI overview at the top of Google. That's the most that they're going to interact with. And now on mobile, you can kind of easily get your way into AI mode from clicking on an AI overview. So I kind of consider them the same. They're like almost embedded in traditional search. They're not the same as Gemini because it's not a full LLM interface. But I think as of right now, still the largest sample size. So worth it for tracking in a time when we just want the most data possible. Gemini. So hasn't been an engine that I've always recommended, but over the past couple of months, specifically the beginning of 26, their market share has really grown in terms of LLM only. So I'll kind of leave out AIO and AI mode from the rest of this conversation in terms of market share because it's a little different. So Gemini as a specific LLM has really grown to be the number 2 behind ChatGPT as far as usage goes. I do think there's also a little bit of a boost here for B2B. If you are a B2B business, for example, Conductor, we use Google Drive, right? It just kind of made sense for us to get a Gemini business license. Also, pretty good model, kind of top of the line. So that also works out for us, but we were already a Google shop. Why would we not just add, their LLM as our official one? So if you are B2B, maybe a little bit extra emphasis there, though it is growing among the general public, probably faster right now than any of the other LLMs. ChatGPT, we kind of know it. It's been the one that dominates market share, was out there first, right? It has that advantage. I will say they've repeatedly said they don't want to be a search engine. So we'll see how this evolves. But right now, their market share as far as LLMs go is still high enough that you want it even just for that sample size, similar to AIO and AI mode. Perplexity. That's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit, right? Like kind of came on strong with ChatGPT and has fallen behind certainly Gemini as far as market share goes. I will say I think the most interesting thing about Perplexity is that it is the most independent in its brand mentions and citations from traditional Google results. So even ChatGPT has kind of been unofficially, there have been some screenshots of it maybe doing some Google searches. Perplexity is not as reliant on Google searches. So interesting to have a kind of a different look at things that's maybe less Google powered than anything else we've talked about so far. So kind of the independent LLM right now, I'll say. Copilot, biggest for B2B to me. I think similar to what I described with Conductor and Google, everybody's got, Word and Excel and some type of Microsoft product, right? So Copilot gets into a lot of businesses. It's already in a lot of businesses. Actually, my wife's company, that's what gave me the idea, was they actually have Copilot's the only one she can use because that's the one they have the license to. So if you're in B2B, I highly recommend Copilot. B2C, maybe not, think about it. And I guess I'm using B2B, but what I'm really saying is if your searchers will be searching at work, Copilot is a good idea. And then Claude, we actually just added some tracking ability to Claude. I'm still kind of getting a feel for it, to be totally honest with you. My one thought is I know it's awesome for coding and it's really awesome for creating. So if your target audience is that type of person, I would absolutely track this. Otherwise, I think the people who are like paying for it and really using it all the time are doing it more to create than search. So they're probably searching too if they're using it to create, but maybe not the other way around, at least right now. All of these subject to change. I'm sure we'll have new versions of all these models. We'll have kind of a new market share landscape by the end of the year. So important to keep up on the news of these things as well. But your guiding light should be tracking where your audience is. So referral traffic, anything you know about your personas, anything you see anecdotally, anything your customers are telling you, that's the best stuff to base your tracking off of. We want to track where they are. Quick summary, was kind of doing it anyway there. Persona driven is key for everything. Think about who you want to reach. That should inform your tracking, your optimizations, how you report, all of that good stuff. Again, we just went through the engines. Make sure you're tracking where they are. Educate now. I say it again. It will make your life a lot easier the earlier we get these ideas socialized. And finally, don't be afraid to switch it up. Again, probably going to refresh the prompts, but if you're tracking a topic and it's not working for you, break it into 2, break it into 3. Change the tracking setup completely to make sure you are reaching the people you want to reach and being kind of where they're searching, and make sure you have what they are looking for. But this is very much a year to see what works and what doesn't. And I think trial and error is the best way to get there. With that, I promised we would get to Q&A. I think we are here. I may be a little bit later than I wanted to be, but I would love to see what people have been talking about while I have been on my monologue. Lauren, how are you?
All good, all good. So yeah, we have a ton of questions that have come in. Let's see, where do I even begin? We have some. Okay. So first question, and I'm gonna mix between some that are Conductor oriented and some that are just more broad questions when it comes to AI. When it comes to source-based authority, do you have any insights about whether a domain name like conductor.com serves as a source when blogs and thought leadership pieces are in the mix? For example, are bylines also seen as a source? So you have like the brand, the domain name, the byline associated. How does that all come together from a source-based authority standpoint?
Yeah, let's break that down in a couple of ways. So domain name, who you are absolutely does matter for your authority, though the actual words in your domain, probably just the name of your business, less important than in traditional search, right? If you had if we were Conductor SEO and our URL was conductorseo.com in a traditional way, that helps us with SEO, right? It's in our root domain. But the AI is going to go beyond that. So they want to know who you are. So your company name matters, but probably more so about all of the bona fides and accolades of your company that are on your About Us page or a similar type page. That's what's really going to be impacting authority. On the byline side, absolutely. Highly recommend having author pages for that. Basically exactly what I just laid out on the company level. Have that individual's accolades. Why are they somebody we should get that information from? Link out to their either author page or LinkedIn, something to show the AI engine that authority.
Got you. Next question is kind of interesting. Go ahead and share this. Is the length and specificity of prompts and LLMs spilling over into Google search queries as well? So I think you had said earlier that some of the average prompts are around 23 words, whatever it may be, that are in LLMs. Are you seeing that that lead to a behavioral change amongst searchers in Google?
That's interesting. So I'll give my take. I will say I don't really have a ton of hard data on this. This is my feeling on it. Yes, it is changing searcher behavior. If you have used an LLM, you will get used to being able to put more into your search, kind of things you may filter on a category page, you'll just put into your search so that the LLM just gives you exactly what you're looking for right away. So I could see people learning that behavior and bringing it to Google. It also kind of makes me think, to be honest, of when I want to do a quick LLM search and I may be just trying to get to AI mode, I will type a long search into Google, but then I click AI mode. So I don't know how that's getting reported in Search Console specifically. So yeah, I think searchers will learn that behavior, though as of right now, traditional Google will still give you relatively similar results. So I think the learned behavior will also be to go to an LLM specifically, or at least until Google becomes one itself.
Got you. Thank you for that. Next question. Here we go. For prompt tracking and the synthetic searches Conductor does, is there customization that's done based on the ICP?
I wish I had a member of my product team here with me to give. I'm hesitant to give the wrong answer. I will say I'd be happy to follow up with you afterwards to make sure I have the answer correct. My general sense is we'll take anything we know about you, all of the data we have about you, to feed into that tracking to make it the most specific we can.
Got you. Here's one. I like this question. Brand mentions for enterprise firms makes total sense. Whether a big brand like OpenAI or Starbucks, but how does that translate for, smaller businesses such as this legal firm in Boulder, Colorado, specializing on family law or general law? So how can we take what's learned from the large brands being rewarded for the brand mentions and apply that to more of a smaller, locally targeted business?
Great question. So first thing, just since we have been talking about tracking, I will say make sure you track locally. Our AI tracking gets super duper specific as far as locations. Like if you were, for example, wanted to track CU students in Boulder, you could do that, like just the campus, not even a zip code level thing. So your tracking should focus on your market. Now, if you get clients from outside of Boulder, absolutely track those places too. But first and foremost, track physically where they are or where they come from. And then the next thing is really to be the expert in your space, right? You're in a more niche space, so there's less competition. There aren't these big trade publications writing about you the way they're writing about OpenAI or Starbucks. So you have an opportunity to create some of that content. Now, we know we don't want it to be too self-serving. There was recently an update from Google that was just kind of penalized all of those self-serving listicles of like, hey, what are the best products? They happen to be my 4 products. So we don't want that. But there's an opportunity for you to show your expertise in that space, right? Whatever so family and general law, I'm sure there are specific topics that are probably undercovered right now, and you could pretty easily be mentioned and cited in an answer with a nice high quality piece of content that we show through author signals that is very authoritative, and we structure it well. We answer all of the questions completely, and it's a great source of information to cite. So it's kind of an opportunity for you to fill the hole that isn't there because that competition isn't there for you.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. Next question is going back to personas. How frequently should we revisit and potentially update personas, including the assumptions we have made about them?
Gosh, that's a great question. I mean, the personas are not static to me, so I feel like this is a cop-out answer, but like as often as there's a need to, right? Like if you're launching a new product, I would imagine there's at least some new personas or ways we'd want to think about old personas differently. If there is a new market, right? Like it makes me think of, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the exact brand name, Pedialyte, made for babies originally, right? And then became a big thing with college students because it's just hydration, right? So, right. They had a new market that they were really getting into. Obviously, they should make some new personas at that point. So let your kind of, I guess maybe business, maybe combine with data, determine that, but don't be afraid to update them. Like as often as there needs to be an update or as often as you learn something new, update them.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. You discussed Copilot a little bit. We had a Microsoft oriented question come through. How are you using Bing's AI performance tool? Is that something that you're plugging in the Conductor? Is that something that, going back to B2B, whether it's a B2B SaaS solution, SaaS companies, whatever, that we know that our target audience are working off of their little what are they called? Think pads or whatever, within a walled Microsoft Teams style environment. How important is Bing's AI performance tool for that?
So I am interested in it. I'm interested in any data that an LLM wants to give, which the Bing performance tool is the first, really the first tool of its kind, I'll say, because in Search Console, you can't filter by anything. It's all just jumbled up in one number for you. So it's not as useful. So I will take it. I am still, and maybe this is unfair to Bing, but I think my initial response is still, is your audience going to be, are you getting a lot out of that? If you're a B2B focused product, then maybe they are, very Copilot heavy. You can get great data out of that, but I would be cognizant of the adoption level, right? The same way that If you asked me 5 years ago, like, hey, why don't we rank for this on Bing? I'd ask you, how much traffic do you get from Bing? How much effort do you want to put towards that?
Right.
So right now, I think it's interesting because it's the only one out there, but impact-wise, TBD.
Gotcha. I'm glad you bring that up too. Like if you're targeting B2B, then your edge traffic and your Bing refers usually have a very high conversion rate. Let's see here. Is it possible to teach an LLM? Is it possible to teach it with markdown files? Is it possible to teach it with LLMs.txt? I'm going to take a lot of questions and just merge it into that. Like, how can we teach the LLMs? What are the best practices?
Yeah. Let me hit a couple. So I know I'm sure everybody read, I think it was last week, the article on prompt injection. Not only they call it attacks, but whatever, like you click summarize with AI, but it's actually like telling the AI to do something. Don't do that. These systems are already smart enough to combat that. You'll get dinged and maybe you never come back because there is no search console for ChatGPT. There's no way to resubmit. If you're found doing that, I don't know what happens to you right now. So don't do that to try to teach an LLM. General markdowns, or I want to actually bring it back out to like a separate piece of content or a markdown page for humans and for AI. I don't think the ROI is there right now. Maybe that's where we end up in a few years, but I think right now you've seen Gary Iles from Google come out and say it doesn't really make a lot of sense. No LLM has confirmed that they would use that or that would have any benefit. If you have the resources and want to test it, great. But I would say it's just a test, and I really don't know if the ROI will be there. Bringing me to the finale here, schema markup is actually my favorite example of something that is extremely important for both traditional and AI search. I'm putting schema markup on any page that I want found in any type of search. That's how you can really teach the engines right now. Traditional search helps you with all of the, the stars and the extra result types and all that good stuff in Google. In the LLM world, it helps break down your content, understand your content. It helps those AIs find the little bit of content, that H2 that really speaks to the prompt that was typed in. So they're going to go grab that little piece of content. And then all of the other, good things it does, identifies your imagery, makes just makes everything better, right? Makes your results better. So right now, schema, I think is number one as it has been for a few years now, even before AI search.
Awesome. Here. Awesome. Let's see here. Next question.
These are great questions, by the way. Thank you all.
Yeah, these are awesome. And there's going to be a lot more. So we're going to send them over to you afterwards, Nick, so you can do your homework tonight. Does Conductor show the third-party sources that help form the sentiment for brands by topic and prompts?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is also like a representative answer along with that prompt, and it will show exactly a representation of what is talked about, right? It's going to cite this source for this bit of content on this subtopic and then so on. But you'll see the actual URLs inside of Conductor as well. And like, I'll say my favorite report that we have right now is our market share one, because I can dive in and see where we're getting beat on market share and then see exactly the competitors that are doing better than us and what pages they're doing better from us, what prompts they're doing better, which tells me what subtopics and what I need to then add to my site. So yes, all of that great data is inside Conductor.
Got you. Okay, sorry, these are jumping around on me here. And this will be the final question of the day. Let's see. What is the best way to structure prompts for SEO-driven topics?
Well, I guess my initial reaction is I'm not structuring a ton of prompts myself, as I've been advocating for, like, let these systems do it. At least our Conductor kind of setup wizard for this is really great. As far as structuring, if you are like writing your own prompts or trying to think about it in that way, I mean, think about, how is your persona taken into account, right? Somebody's probably giving some information about themselves in their search, whether they know it or not. So who is that and how does that influence how they search, what they're searching for? Kind of break it down almost like the 5 Ws, I guess, would be my initial reaction, right? Who's making that prompt? Who do you want to reach? That's how I would kind of think of the prompt build. But again, that's one thing I'm a big fan of as marketers, we need to use AI tools, right? They're not going to replace us, but they'll replace you if you don't use them. This is one where I'm happy to let the system do most of the heavy lifting as far as prompts go and just have a light review at the end, really.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll give you one more question before we...
Let's do it.
So of it. How many prompts should we be tracking ideally per topic?
That's a great question. This is one truly that you should set up some tracking and then monitor it and see how it's doing, right? Like, do you feel like you have the coverage you need? Do you need more prompts here, less prompts there? I think it will change. I think it does change by industry and by topic, right? Like I said, if you have a big, broad topic, you may want a lot of prompts under that to get a good representative sample. If your topic, and this is just a proxy, the word count doesn't actually matter, but if your prompt is like, topic is like 6-7 words long, meaning it's pretty specific, maybe you only need 20 or 30 prompts under that to really get what you need. And then if you do any more than that, you start to branch out kind of away from what you were trying to track with the topic. So let your topics and products and services kind of decide that, and also start tracking, like go with a setup. The best advice I can give is start tracking, see what that data is, and read and react from there.
Awesome. Well, Nick, thank you so much. Thank you for the team of Conductor for putting this all together. It was a pleasure hosting you today. You're based in beautiful Denver, Colorado, right?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Yeah. So usually we have the New York office on. It's nice to diversify a little bit, represent the Rocky Mountains. So again, Nick, thanks a lot. Just to let all of you know, as a reminder, the video and the slides from today will be made available in our recap to all attendees and registrants. Also, we got a lot of questions that came in, and we couldn't get to them all today, but we will be following up with Nick to get anything answered on that end and send that over with the recap as well. Nick, it's been a pleasure. Where can folks find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Nick Gallagher. It'll be the same picture that you're looking at, just black and white. That'll be the best place. And I appreciate you having me, Lauren. I appreciate all the great questions. You guys have been a great audience today. This has been a great time.
Nice. Awesome. And to everyone that's still on, our next week, March 11th, we're hosting a SEJ Live 3-hour virtual conference. Myself and members of our SEJ newsroom will be going over what's trending in AI search. Then the next hour will be all about KPI and metrics that matter now, how to track what's actually, how to track KPIs that are derived from AI and as SEO changes in the future. And then the final hour will be more of an executive level overview, a CMO how-to, and answer engine strategies, right? We know that the C-suite's getting emails and LinkedIn DMs left and right about AI search and what to do, what not to do, whatever it may be. We're going to have a representative from Forrester on discussing AI search strategies for the rest of the year. So it's going to be an amazing show. Go to searchenginejournal.com right now. You'll probably get a pop-up. Sorry about that. But you'll probably get a pop-up when you visit the site on how to register, and looking forward to seeing all of you next week at our SEJ Live. Nick, again, it's been a pleasure. Thanks to you, and thanks to the team of Conductor for making this happen.
Thank you. Have a good one, everybody.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.